Cool. All right, welcome to the first episode of Coaster Conventional, brought to you by Derailed Coasters. And today we have a very special guest on the stream. Welcome, Insidegadv Adventure. As many of you know, Insidegadv Adventure has probably one of the best Great Adventure content pages on Instagram. So if you guys are familiar with Insidegadv Adventure, I have their links down in the description if you are not. But give a warm welcome to our guest.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully everyone's doing well. And again, I want to say thank you to Austin for bringing me on here to this first episode of Coaster Conventional. And I'm really honored to be here. And I'm really excited to get into all the topics about Great Adventure and whatnot.
Cool. So the first thing that I would like to go over with you is how did you become so inspired to do content creation for Great Adventure specifically?
Okay, so it's actually a really funny story. So for people that know me, they know I used to have a former account called Insidegadv Adventure, not Insidegadv Adventure, Eastern Throws. And that was a very general coaster account, and it talked about parks pretty much all along the Northeast.
Yeah.
But one day I had wanted to make an account all about Great Adventure. I'd seen different accounts, and I was like, maybe it's it'd be really interesting to talk about Great Adventure. And the main reason why I actually made the account in the first place was to spark conversation. For people that know me, I love speaking about Great Adventure, and I love talking about all things about it, whether it's Jersey Devil, whether it's a new shop or new store or any new rumors. I love all of that. So that was a big factor into me making the account specifically, was mainly just to start conversations about the park and just to meet new people and connect and, make different friendships and whatnot. And that definitely has happened over the past 2 years. And I'm very grateful for each and every person who has supported me and, been with my account all along and whatnot and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Awesome. I love to hear that. And it goes to show, that the Great Adventure energy is just that great, that attracts enthusiasts like that. And I love hearing that, because as somebody who's been going to the park for so long, it's, there's not a whole lot of enthusiasts that really focus on a single park. So seeing you, go out of your way to research all the history behind all the flat rides and the construction of older rides, where you post them on your Instagram stories and you really go in depth on the dates and stuff, that's really cool to see, because you don't get that very often with other enthusiasts. I mean, you have your select few, I'm sure there are a few others, but there are a lot of coaster enthusiasts, in my opinion, that really just cover mainly the entire realm of the coaster world. They'll go to any park and they'll have an opinion about pretty much any other park, and they'll cover that. It's very broad, but you're very straightforward about Great Adventure, and I love that, because if somebody's looking for a page, in my opinion, where they want to learn more about a specific park like Great Adventure, pages like yours are really helpful for that, and that's a lot of hard work and dedication, and I really appreciate that you go out of your way to do that kind of stuff. It's really cool, in my opinion.
If I can touch on something really quickly,
yeah,
sure. You brought it up. I really do enjoy doing the ride histories, only because I know there are a lot of people that are much older than me, in the sense that they've seen some of the rides that I cover. I started going to the park in 2014, so I was not there for eras like Rolling Thunder, Great American Scream Machine, Chillers, and so forth. So I really do like covering the ride history, not only to see where Great Adventure has come, but what Great Adventure started off with. For example, even today I did a ride history on the log flume, and it really just shows how the park was in the 70s in comparison to how it is now. And I just find it so interesting and so cool to just cover things like that. And yeah, I love doing it. So I really appreciate your comment about the ride histories and whatnot.
Yeah, of course, no problem. One thing that I thought was really cool, the other day you were doing ride history on El Sombrero, and that was I think one of my very first rides ever, and just reading about it brought back so much nostalgia, because I used to go to the park with my parents when I was 4 years old, and I would ride all the flat rides, and I didn't really get on a roller coaster per se. I rode Roadrunner Railway, which, as we all know, is dismantled right now.
Right.
But my first big coaster, and I tackled it at 4 years old, was Rolling Thunder. So,
Wow.
I became a coaster enthusiast at such a young age. I've had it around me my entire life. So it's really cool to see people with like that kind of enthusiasm out there. Like I said, I really appreciate what you do for Great Adventure. I think it's really cool, and I think there's a lot of valuable information that you can find on your page, and your photography is awesome too. Like the posters that pictures that you post on your Instagram are great. The quality is great, and you're very interactive with your fan base as well, with all your followers, and that is something that I also really appreciate about you, because as you know, like when certain pages tend to blow up more than they do in like certain categories and whatnot, and eventually content creators like tend to become less and less involved with their community. But from what I can see, you're very involved with your community, and you want to keep interacting with them and keep pulling them in, and that's really cool. I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, that's something I want to actually also talk about. I really do love hearing from so many, because the one thing about my account, I want to say this first. I know I do have a lot of followers, but I don't like to look at it in the terms of followers, only because it sounds weird. I almost like to look at it as people that like Great Adventure. And like, for example, I have like, oh, well, I have 5,800 people that like Great Adventure, or something like that. And with the interactiveness part of it, I really like hearing from people. For example, even what you just said right now about Rolling Thunder and how you wrote it, and like those experiences, because I think it's so important to just look back on the good memories, and funny memories too. Some people the stories I hear about people losing their phones and different things like that, I find so funny. But I really like hearing from people in the sense of their like old memories and stuff like that, and experiences that they've had at the park, and again, really just sparking a conversation about the park, because ultimately that was the reason why I created the account in the first place.
That's great.
To start conversations and to just interact with people from Great Adventure who are maybe older than me and have a little more experience, and just have a really like open and like chill environment, if that makes sense. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Yeah, that's so cool that you're that dedicated. Like you just want to hear what everybody's experiences at the park are. That's great. You're a super fan for Great Adventure, and like I said, I love that. There's not a whole lot of parks that really gather that much attention. Like a couple that I can name off the top of my head that do is Cedar Point and Magic Mountain. But, like, you never really hear people go that crazy for Great Adventure, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's got King Ka and El Toro, which two world-class roller coasters in our lineup, you know what I mean? But they're so overshadowed by, like, rides like Top Thrill Dragster and Steel Vengeance, and, even at Magic Mountain you have Twisted Colossus and Tatsu, and there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of factors that come into play here, really overshadow Great Adventure in my opinion sometimes. But there's a lot of cool things that have come from this park, and one of my favorite memories, like personally, is being able to experience both sides of Chiller before they shut that down. That ride was phenomenal, and I will tell you from experience, if Chiller was still at Great Adventure to this day, it would probably be number 2 in the park. Easily. Batman was such a crazy experience for a premier LIM launched roller coaster. The launch was forceful. The top hat was forceful. And overall, the dueling experience was great, which, as you probably know, based on how much you've done your research on the park, they didn't really consistently run them as a dueling coaster.
Yeah, mainly because of like the power grid and stuff like that, and and so forth.
So I don't remember exactly what event it was, but when my mother was still running Great Adventure Outpost, we got invited to the park to some event, and this was the year that Chiller closed down, unfortunately. But we were some of the last riders on that coaster, and they ran it as a dueling coaster for us. So I actually got to experience Chiller as a dueling coaster, and there was nothing like it. Like, even Rolling Thunder as a dueling coaster did not compare to the intensity and excitement that you got from riding Chiller as a dueling coaster. It was such a great experience. Are there any, like, specific fond memories that you have at the park that you would like to discuss?
I have so I have so many experiences. One moment that I will mention in particular was in 2015. And this is one thing that I'll say about any place is that people really make a place fun. I had went to Great Adventure with three of my other friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were just having fun at the park. We all were really close, and we all just hung out and got on all the rides. We stayed there from 10 a.m. 10:30 a.m. opening. I think at the time they opened at 10:30. Now they're opening at 10, which is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. 10:30 opening to 10 p.m. close. It was on a Sunday. Um, I believe it was in July, but it was just like going around and running around to all the rides and just having fun and being in line and waiting in those hour lines and playing charades and whatnot, and just the experience. It was so fun. I mean, I will say every time I do go to Good Adventure, I do have a very nice time.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people don't like crowded Great Adventure and stuff like that. I personally don't mind it because I find that it has a lot of energy, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that there's a lot of energy and excitement for people to go on rides. So I do I I funny enough really like crowded Great Adventure when it's crowded. But again, back to 2015, just like the experience and just mind you, this was also one of the first times I was going. This was the second year of me going, and I only went 2 or 3 times in 2014.
Right.
So just being able to experience everything and waiting in those lines and making those memories with those people that I really care about,
Uh-huh.
it was amazing. Another funny moment and another memory that I have is me, Amusement Insiders, and Peninsula of Thrills,
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of other people. They had come from Canada and Ohio and whatnot and so forth to Great Adventure, and there was this one El Toro ride that we had gotten at night, and it was running so fast. It was like it was flying through the layout. The switchbacks were going super fast,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember all of us screaming and laughing and shouting different things. And it was just so funny
That's
and so
awesome.
memorable. But my main point in all of this is that the people that you go to parks with and those people that you care about and your loved ones and stuff are the people that make the park that it is, and the experiences that you have can majorly be because of people and the interactions that you have.
Oh,
So
for
yeah, those are
sure.
those, those are two of my favorite moments.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say like those are two of my favorite moments, but every moment I have at Great Adventure is really fun.
Oh yeah, I have tons and tons of memories. But one thing that I want to mention too that you brought up is having those connections as the people that you go to the park with, and like one thing that I'm kind of like really grateful for, because since I grew up in the coaster community so early on, like I still have a lot of like enthusiast friends that I grew up with that I'm lucky to still be able to go to the parks with. So like I made a lot of connections with people as a child, like even like, and I still go to the park with a couple of those people to this day. To like the first Power Hours I went to, I met up with my buddy Chuck, and he was like, when I was like 5 or 6 or 7, I forget how old I was. He was like 18 or 19 at the time. Like he was just turned into an adult, but he was friends with my mom, and
Mm.
I'd go to the park with him. And another one I would go to the park with all the time, Rob Ackerman. We call him RT. Um, but yeah, there stuff things like that. Like I can relate to you on that level, because when you go to the park and you meet up with somebody and you just build like that friendship just for your love of roller coasters and theme parks, like not many people can say they can do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a specific coaster group that I've certainly gotten a little closer to this year is Coasters and Brews, and that would be Drew Delengowski and Matt Salvano. They run that.
Hmm.
They're great people. They're very humble. They just want to, they go out to the parks. They express their enthusiasm for roller coasters and craft beer, and like that's so cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm meeting other people that share the same enthusiasm that I do, and that's just something that you don't come across very often. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, definitely over the past over my entire time of being in the community and like being on Instagram and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely made a lot of lasting and friendships that I'll never forget. And that's something that I also find amazing, like you're saying, is finding people that you can go to the park with and share a connection of loving coasters and also just getting along and having someone to hang out with is so amazing. And
Yeah.
there's so many people that I could just list. I obviously can't list but just so many amazing friendships that I've made over the past 2 years that I will always like remember and hold dear because you know it's always fun to have someone to hang out with at a park and whatnot and go on that same ride over and over and over and whatnot. So yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. My biggest coaster enthusiast friend is my little brother because he's also into it, and unfortunately he doesn't go to the parks as much as he used to. I
Hmm.
try, but he works a lot, so I understand he's tired and doesn't want to go wear himself down more, and that's all right. So, but yeah, like I said, it's just really cool to come across people like that where you can find connections with people that have similar interests with you, because the internet is like such a vast place, and there
Yeah.
are so many different communities of so many different people, and it's sometimes with how many communities there are, it's just hard to find one that you could fit into really. So like I
Hmm.
definitely feel like the coaster community is definitely like in my opinion for me, and I don't know if it's for you, but for me, like it's like the best place for me to fit into, you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, but the I think there's a lot of different sides and parts of the coast community, I will say. But I do think that I have found my place in the community and I found my group of friends that I care about and enjoy spending time with. And ultimately, that's all what matters. And, I'm very content and very happy for those people.
Hmm. So let's talk about Jersey Devil, right? So Jersey Devil is getting very close to nearing construction completion, and I'm gonna be completely honest. Like for Six Flags standard, seeing the landscaping they've done for the ride, like it's actually blown me away. Like the theming is really good on that ride. Like I was going into this with a lower expectation because, as we all know, Six Flags Parks does the DC theming quite often. And, some rides they have in particular are pretty well themed. And then you have other coasters that are hardly themed at all. Like Green Lantern, in my opinion, is like one of the lesser themed rides at the park. Like, yeah, they have the carve out of Parallax at the bottom of the loop. And they decorated the station to, like, have when courage takes flight, like the Green Lantern slogan. Like it's cool, but the landscaping around it really just gives it that parking lot coaster vibe. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy about Jersey Devil. I have this really good friend. His name is Zenith.
Uh huh.
And we consistently talk about Jersey Devil like almost daily, and it's amazing. And I'm really happy with how that area is turning out. I'm actually going to try and visit the park this weekend, so it'll be the first time that I see all of the landscaping come together. The last time I visited was in early May, May 2nd. So I'm really excited to just see all the landscaping. But it's really been amazing watching this coaster get built over the past few years, even through the pandemic. And
Yeah.
from them topping off the ride to them putting the station together to them putting trains on the track to us seeing the theming and the landscaping and then seeing that landscaping come to life
It's
really has just been
it's
an amazing
incredible.
experience.
It's
Yeah.
definitely
And
incredible.
I know a lot of people are very excited for the test runs. I am super excited for when they start to test, and I'm just very happy with how Jersey Nova is coming out and turning out to be right now.
Yeah, so as you know, we've been talking back and forth on Instagram, and like I check up on Jersey Devil like daily. Like I cannot keep my eyes off of that coaster. Like I talk to anybody that I possibly can find that I know is gonna be at the park that day, and ask them to keep an eye out for a test run. Because
Right.
like you, I am super excited for this coaster. I actually have only been on two Rocky Mountain construction roller coasters, that them being Wicked Cyclone and Goliath. But like the
Hmm.
experiences that I had on those coasters were so crazy and just so fun. The anticipation of having an RMC at my home park is just it eats me alive because I know this coaster is going to be a phenomenal production. I know it's going to be a great ride, and Yeah, so like one thing that I want to talk about with you is because there's a lot of mixed opinions on Jersey Devil. A lot of people think that it's not going to be as great as everybody says, and then there are people that love it and think that it's going to be the best ride in the park. What are your opinions on that? Do you think that it could take the crown from El Toro, or do you think it's just going to be a top 3 roller coaster?
So I have been anticipating. I know a lot of people have been anticipating, but for myself, I have really been anticipating Jersey Devil and Great Adventures Next Coaster, which is also Jersey Devil.
Right.
I personally do think that Jersey Devil will take the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this because it is a Raptor, which is unlike anything that I've been on. I've never been on a Raptor, and
Uh-huh.
like you, I've been on 2 RMCs. I've been on Wicked Cyclone, and I've been on Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion, and
Yeah.
both are amazing. And Jersey Devil's layout, when I first saw it, it shocked me. I was like, wow, this is really a Raptor, and it's really coming to Great Adventure. I really like the combination of elements. I like that it has pretty much almost everything an RMC has. So let's say you take something like Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance is a ride that has almost every element that an
Uh-huh.
RMC has. And I feel that Jersey Devil has almost every element an RMC should have. And I really think that Jersey Devil's combination of inversion, airtime, laterals, and just the fact that it's a single rail, for me, will take it over El Toro. But I will say that El Toro is an amazing ride and is definitely the best coaster in the park for me.
Right.
But I can see the arguments for El Toro being the best, and I also can totally see the arguments for Jersey Devil being the best. But what I will say is that Jersey Devil and El Toro will be a great top 2, and Jersey Devil's addition into Great Adventures lineup will give it a great top.
Oh, for sure. I think Jersey Devil and El Toro will probably be seen as one of the best 1-2 punches at any theme park. For me personally, I'm actually like, at first, like when I saw the layout and everything, and I saw the Raptor and whatnot, I actually was like Team Jersey Devil for taking it over El Toro. But now, as it stands, because and this is kind of a biased opinion per se. Because after watching the test runs of Stunt Pilot at Silverwood last week, as people have noticed, that Raptor is actually running slower in performance than the other two. However, this could also be due to the fact that it's still brand new, fresh on the plate, and hasn't warmed up enough, which obviously, roller coasters need their time to warm up. Maybe they're just not ready to test it at full speed yet or whatever. But at the same time, when you think about that, it makes you wonder, because the argument for Jersey Devil being underwhelming that has been made throughout the coaster community is that its layout isn't as compact as the other Raptors. So people don't think that it's going to pull the same forces as the other ones do or carry over the same speed, which I have a counter argument for this, because every time I go to the park and I look at that ride, I think to myself, like, wow, okay, so the Raven Dive after the first drop, the height difference is crazy. And with the 12-car train, I think that whip over the first drop is just, and how light the train is, I think it will withheld the speed of a Raptor, and I think it will still produce what we love in Raptor models on Jersey Devil. And I think, even though it's like a really experimental layout for RMC, I really think like it's been underrated a ton, and I honestly think Jersey Devil deserves a little bit more of a conversation. But back to my main point, as far as whether it's gonna beat El Toro for number 1 in the park, I'm just waiting to see the test runs for it before I make a final judgment, because if it does pan out the way that I think it is, whereas it's going to carry on the speed of the other Raptors, then yeah, I would definitely go Team Jersey Devil and say that it'll probably beat El Toro for number 1 in the park. Jersey Devil, as you know, features a 0G stall. How excited are you for that? Have you ever experienced one, and what are your thoughts on that?
So a lot of people that know me know that I have been really excited for this stall.
Mm-hmm.
Rides like Zadra and Twisted Colossus, I adore their stalls, and Goliath too. I
Mm-hmm.
adore their stalls. I don't know if people necessarily count Wicked Cyclones as a stall, but I wouldn't count it as a stall like Zadra or Goliath. But I am very excited for the Zero G stall, and I think it might just be my favorite inversion on the ride, but it depends on how the dive loop is, because that dive loop shaping is just
Yeah,
unique, and I'm really intrigued about it, and I want to see it run, and but I definitely think that the stall right now is my most anticipated inversion and potentially my most anticipated element. With
uh-huh.
that second being the first drop, because that first drop in the back row is going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and I agree with you there. I think it's safe to say that the zero G stall could definitely be the most anticipated element on the ride, especially because it's gonna be the first zero G stall introduced to the East Coast Six Flags chains. As you know, Pantheon at Busch Gardens is also going to feature one, and Velocicoaster down in Universal also has one. However, RMC, I don't know. I haven't been on those two rides. I haven't experienced an Intamin Zero G stall, but I just feel like RMC does it in a way that creates it on their own. Like, it's their own element. Like, even if another manufacturer like try to replicate that, I don't think it would be as good as RMC's. This is coming from my judgment based on my rides on Goliath, because I've been on Goliath at Great America, and let me tell you, the hang time on that zero G stall, just the way they shaped it, you're hanging upside down for a solid 3 to 4 seconds, and it's just insane. It's like experiencing an airtime hill upside down, and I feel like the Intamin ones aren't drawn out enough to get the same feeling. So with Jersey Devil, like, because the trains are longer, you already know that the stall had to be dragged out a little bit more. So I definitely feel like we're gonna experience the RMC hang time that we love on the zero G stalls they have on their other models, for sure.
Yeah, that hang time, I think that's what I'm most anticipating, is the hang time, because like you said, it is a longer train. And that stall just looks so, like, it looks very drawn out, and I'm very excited because it looks like it'll give really good hang time.
Another thing too that I had an interesting idea about, right? So say that this does carry over like the speed of the original Raptors, and we fly through that zero G stall, and instead of experiencing extended time of hang time, we experience this all new different feeling of positive G-force, where the train is just pressing up against the track upside down, where you don't really get that when you fall to the bottom of a airtime hill where you experience positive G-forces. So like, I think that's another possibility that could honestly make or break this ride, in my opinion. Like, I think how the zero G stall feels is going to be a crucial part of this ride. Like, either way, either or, it's obviously going to win over coaster enthusiasts, because zero G stalls are still new. They're still a fresh idea. They're not replicated enough to be, like a generic element. So I definitely feel like, I actually like just watched a YouTube video the other day, and somebody was talking about how Jersey Devil could make or break RMC, and like, at the end of the day, like, I have to agree with them, because this is an experimental Raptor coaster, and like, the Raptor is currently their only steel coaster model. I don't technically count the iBox track as a steel coaster, because the supports are still wooden. Like, I'm talking about like full blown steel coaster, and the Raptor models. The Raptor models are a cheaper model that you can get from RMC because they're completely steel, and with the reputation they've garnered over the years with their rides, I definitely think the Raptor model is going to be an aspiring model for littler parks to look at and be like, wow, that's really cool, and like, the price isn't that bad either. Like, so we could start to see RMC pop in these Raptors down in these smaller parks, and that could easily become these parks' signature models. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think the Raptor is a very smart idea from I'm very happy Great Adventure got the Raptor because it's unlike anything in the area, and I'm really happy that RMC is making bigger Raptors, because I think a lot of people like the Raptors for their speed and their intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also really good in a sense that they're affordable for smaller parks, and you can also have custom layouts with larger parks such as Great Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very good that RMC is being very versatile with this Raptor product, and I really hope, and I do believe Jersey Devil will be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that RMC continues to expand the Raptor and continue to thrive and succeed with them, because a lot of people really like them, both enthusiasts and general public.
Cool. So is there anything else that you want to touch base on as far as Jersey Devil goes?
I am really excited that it has a moving station and it has 4 trains.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I don't really talk about this too much on my page. I have mentioned it in some of my ride spotlights, but I love capacity. And I'm really excited that they got that 4th train.
Yeah.
And have the moving station to keep the station moving, to keep guests moving, and also to just have high throughput and to get as many people on the ride as possible. So I'm very happy about that. And we've also seen earlier renditions of a moving station at Great Adventure. The Dark Knight had featured a moving station.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that it's back with Jersey Devil, and they're having fortune. And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think the moving station's a great idea. I think as long as they've learned from their mistakes with Wonder Woman and they fix the mode switching problem that they had where you couldn't put it in manual or automatic so that you could dispatch the trains manually instead of using the moving station. As long as they fix that, I think it'll be good. I also am very curious.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Jersey Devil to open. I'm excited for it to test, and I'm excited for the public to receive it. Just because I really want it. Like, I don't even run Great Adventure, but I really just want the ride to do well, because I just want Great Adventure to have a lot of success with the ride, and be able to have great reviews and all that, and so on and so forth.
For sure, yeah. So the next topic that I want to touch base on is, as everybody knows, Great Adventure is going to be making a big announcement tonight. So there's been a picture circulating around social media, and around Safari Off-Road Adventures, there have been dinosaur statues spotted. So the assumption here is that there's going to be a dinosaur walkthrough introduced to the park, just like at Six Flags New England. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel that's going to work with the general public, and how do you feel coaster enthusiasts are going to feel about that?
That's a great question. I think coaster enthusiasts are going to be a little shocked by that. I think coaster enthusiasts maybe were not expecting that. I know a lot of people were expecting a Jersey Devil announcement, to which the park then said this is not a Jersey Devil announcement. But I think, so I think the enthusiasts are going to be a little shocked, for the ones that don't know, of course. And I think the general public will take it really well. I think the dinosaur thing is cool, and it's obviously unlike anything within a 4-hour distance. Obviously, like you mentioned, New England has it. But I think it'll be very cool and interesting for it to come to Great Adventure, and also it's great for the park in the sense that they'll be able to make more money and more revenue, and then they can turn into park improvements and so on and so forth. So not only are you getting a good experience for guests, but you're also in turn making the revenues to continue to improve and uphold the park, which is awesome.
I totally agree, and I think if this is something that can generate a better revenue for the park, as a lot of people know, the state of Great Adventure as far as the ride paint jobs and all that stuff, it's not exactly the greatest. They repainted Superman a couple of years ago, which is a step in the right direction, and Superman looks beautiful now, but there are rides that are in desperate need of it, like Nitro, for example. It hasn't been repainted since it was built. And the paint job on that is super faded, and a lot of people complain about that. Even, I hear general public talking about it sometimes. So, what I'm really hoping they do with the dinosaur walkthrough thing, even if they make it a small upcharge, take the revenue that you get from that, and take the revenue that you get from opening Jersey Devil and pulling in the bigger crowds. Because as some New Jerseyans know, a lot of the COVID restrictions are starting to get lifted. So at some point of this year, I think Great Adventure is going to go back to maximum capacity. And with the opening of Jersey Devil, we all know that a new ride or roller coaster, its biggest intention is to draw a new crowd of people that become more interested in the product and whatever. So what I really hope for the park is I'm really, really hoping that they take the profit and revenue they generate from these two exciting new additions to the park, and they invest it back into the park.
Yeah, I definitely think that I think that I honestly could see the announcement tomorrow being an upcharge. I could see it being $5-10, probably $5.
Right.
And they just have it be a walkthrough and charge $5, and so on and so forth. and I think they'd be really good, and I think they'd be able to generate a lot of money from that, as I think, at least from what I understand from other parks, because obviously Six Flags is always doing research and always looking for what people want and want to see. So I think based off their research, I think if they charge like $5 or so, it'll do very well. And then obviously they'll see that in return, like you said, with paint jobs or other things TLC, whether it's building upgrades, so on and so.
Yeah. Another thing that too that I think would be really beneficial to the park for adding this dinosaur walkthrough thing is after the removal of Looney Tunes Seaport, and we all know this is an issue at the moment. There's a lot of lackluster family attractions in the park. Like you have Bugs Bunny National Park, and you have Safari Kids over by Skull Mountain there, but there are still some people that complain about the lack of things to do for kids and families, and I honestly think the dinosaur walkthrough is a really cool experience for the kids and the families, and I think that's gonna, until they introduce a new kids section to the park, which I think will be soon enough because they still have Roadrunner Railway and a couple of the rides they disassembled from Looney Tunes Seaport in storage in the back of the park, as we can see from Nitro. So I definitely think this is a good addition. Now, one thing that I want to discuss with you is I want your opinion on where you think the dinosaur walkthrough is going to go, because that's kind of something in question right now, and nobody's really sure where they're going to place that. And even I don't know exactly where they think would be a good idea to place it. The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head right now that I can see that going is over there by Joker, along the lake there, where they have that pathway to walk around. I think that could potentially be like a spot for it, but I'm not sure at the same time. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, based off of the photo that, if you don't know already, there's been a photo that circulated around with the dinosaurs at Great Adventure, and I believe that is in the area of Safari Off-Road Adventure. I believe it's in like the driveway of there, so I wouldn't. And obviously, the photo that circulated was not fully zoomed out, so we have no indication as to if it'll actually be there. But I think Safari Off-Road Adventures area would be a really good place, considering it's not being in use right now.
Yeah.
Because we have the drive-thru. So I think the photo. I want to say the photo was taken over by Safari Off-Road Adventure, but if not, I think that will be an amazing place for the walkthrough to go, as it's not being occupied right now, and I think it'd be a great use of space.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that's I actually didn't even think of that, and I definitely think that could be a very beneficial spot for something like that to go to. Even if they don't bring back like the safari trucks, like you could walk, like they could create a pathway around Safari Off-Road Adventures like course, and like, kind of bring that area to the park like as something to walk around. You mentioned the drive-through safari. When COVID restrictions get fully released, do you think the park is going to keep the drive-through safari, or do you think they're going to reintroduce Safari Off-Road Adventure?
That's a great question. I could see them. Truthfully, I could see them continuing Safari Off-Road Adventure, as from what I've understood in stockholders calls, and you can listen to them back from when the pandemic first started.
Mm-hmm.
It really did well for Six Flags. It generated a lot of revenue, and people also had this sense of safety, as the pandemic was just starting.
Yep.
Wanting to make sure people were as safe as possible. But mainly that revenue part. From what I understand, the safari has generated millions of dollars in revenue.
Oh yeah.
For Six Flags, and I think that that's something that is very important to Six Flags. And I also think a lot of the general public enjoy driving through the park on their own with their own car. I will say I do love Safari Off-Road Adventure. I do love the trucks. I've experienced multiple times in 2017 and 2018. And it was a very enjoyable experience. But I think from a business standpoint, I think it would make sense for Six Flags, Great Adventure and Six Flags as a whole, to keep it, as they have been generating that income and that revenue.
Yeah.
And that even goes into the drive-thru with the Holiday in the Park.
Mm-hmm.
I could even see that returning, because from what I understood, that also served really well for Six Flags.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time kept people safe and allowing people to see millions of lights from their car.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that they could definitely reinterpret the drive-through safari back into the main park as like a separate attraction, like separated from the amusement park, but like keep it separate, because I definitely think like when they introduced Safari Off-Road Adventure, I think, like, I understand it was for a marketing strategy. Like, they took the reins as like one of the world's, I think it was the largest theme park in the United States, if not the world. I don't remember the record off of the top of my head, but I think because they incorporated it into the general amusement park, they lost a lot of money on that. And I'm not saying that because obviously Safari Off-Road Adventure brought in a new crowd to the theme park, but I don't think it served its purpose to the extent they thought it was going to, because I think like part of the strategy was to have Safari Off-Road Adventure like pull people to the theme park so that they could check that out, and then as they're like walking around the park to get to it, like see all the other attractions that they have in the theme park. And I don't think that really like was like the right move, because Six Flags Great Adventure as a whole was already a busy enough park as it is, with the Safari separated from the theme park. So I feel like they would generate more revenue for the park and the company if they had just kept the drive-through Safari as a separate attraction. You know what I mean?
And I think it definitely shows in the sense that, from what I understand and from what I see whenever I go on Bizarro, that's one of the things I love about going on Bizarro, is because I can see people driving in their cars, looking at
Yeah.
thousands of animals. But yeah, I definitely think that I think it will be interesting and awesome for them to keep it as a drive-through, because not only would they be generating revenue, but people again can drive from their cars. One thing I will mention is that some people have brought up the idea of a hybrid version, having the Safari Off-Road Adventure in the trucks and also having the drive-through. I think that's interesting. I don't necessarily know how that would fully work, because there would have to be a balance of cars to trucks.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting concept, and I mean, I would imagine Six Flags is, their creative minds are thinking, how, what are we gonna do going forward? So I think that'll be something interesting. But again, like I said, I'd be more for them to make it a drive-through with your own car.
Oh yeah, of course. I definitely like think that that's like the way to go for them. Anyways, as far as the park goes, are there any recommendations that you want to make to our viewers, like food-wise? You want to kind of go over what you, in your personal opinion, would think would be like the way to go if you're going to the park on a busy day, when you're coming from out of state, or what rides you would want to focus on first? Things like that. Like,
for someone who, if you go to Great Adventure for the first time, you're on vacation, you're like, let's go to the Los Ultimate Thrill Park, go on Jersey Level, go for the guides. I would, for this year, I would recommend, when Jersey Double does open, I would recommend going there first, as that I can almost guarantee that we'll have the longest line in the park. Amongst opening. So if you want to get on Jersey Double, and try and get the shortest wait time possible, I would definitely recommend going there. Followed by making a trip across the park. Yes, across the park. To King the Ka and El Toro. King the Ka, because it's the world's tallest coaster, and that line can get pretty long, and same thing with El Toro. And this is if you do not have a Flash Pass. I personally would recommend anyone coming from out of state or going on vacation to purchase the Flash Pass. I have the all-season Flash Pass, and on crowded days, the line can get very long, can get up to 2 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
And that Flash Pass really will help you cut down the wait time, even 50%. I have Platinum, so it is 90%, but any 50% or 90%, I think really helps you maximize your day and get on as many rides. But again, I would recommend doing Jersey Double, King the Ka, and El Toro first, if those are your first 3 rides for the day. For food, my favorite place to go right now, and somewhere where I always go, is Chopsticks. Chopsticks was introduced in 2019. It replaced Panda Express, which was formerly at the park for a decent amount of years. And I love going there. I find the food is almost always fresh, always cooked well, always just tasty and delicious. I always get the orange chicken and the fried rice, but I know a lot of people like the tofu chicken and those different combinations.
Mm-hmm.
But that is somewhere where I definitely would recommend, because in my personal opinion, that is my favorite place to eat at Great Adventure, and that's somewhere where I will almost always eat.
And to add
And
on,
also,
oh yeah,
oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
and I have not tried this yet. I do have intentions on trying it this weekend when I go.
Mm-hmm.
Jersey Double Barbecue, I'm hearing really good things about. I'm hearing great things about the hot burger, and I'm hearing great things about the chili brisket. That one thing I do want to note about that is that it is a new food place, so everything might not be perfect the first time you go. They are still trying to get things under control and making it the best they can and tweaking it and doing what they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So everything might not be perfect, but I do think that Jersey Double Barbecue will become a staple, and a lot of people will really enjoy eating there and trying the new food options. And it's also themed to the Jersey Double, which is really unique to Jersey Double and New Jersey as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. So to add on to some of the things you said there, as far as going to, if you're coming from out of state and you want to check out the rides, I think the order of rides that Inside Great Adventure has stated is perfect trio to start with in the day. Those lines will be particularly long. One thing to note about King Ka is King Ka breaks down numerous times throughout the day. You know, it's obviously it has its problems, and they're not major, but it's enough to give it like 5-10 minutes of downtime throughout multiple periods of the day. So I would definitely if you're coming to the park from out of state, either pick between Jersey Devil or King Ka first. Whatever you prioritize more, whether it's you want to check out the new ride first or if you want to ride the world's tallest coaster first, whatever your priority is in that department, I would definitely toss it up between those two. And then whatever you pick, go to El Toro. El Toro is definitely the ride, in my opinion, in the park that garnishes the longest lines. I would also recommend Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Truth as the flat ride, because that also really, really grabs long lines. They even have a temporary queue set up across the bridge to get to the ride because of how long the lines get sometimes. And in my opinion, it is the best flat ride in the park. There is no other experience like that in the park. I think it's a really great ride. As far as the food goes, I agree with Jersey Devil Barbecue and Chop Six, but one other food place that I want to kind of bring up, and this is a mixed opinion, but I was actually introduced to this food place this year, and it's the gyro place in the Golden Kingdom right in front of El Toro there, where the pathway splits between Log Flume and El Toro. And the food that I had there, and I've gone there multiple times this year because I personally think it's really good, especially like it's so good. Like it doesn't taste like park food, like it tastes like legitimate food in my opinion. So I think the quality of the gyro place over there by El Toro is also another good food stand to visit if you're coming to the park.
Yeah, I do want to add really quickly. You mentioned Wonder Woman, and that definitely is a ride that you also should try and get to relatively first.
Uh-huh.
Wonder Woman is very popular, and for good reason, as it's one of the tallest pendulum rides in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that line certainly can get very long. I have seen it get to 2 hours, and on opening day, it reached, I believe, around 2.5 hours. And it's still very popular today, and will get very long lines. So I think Wonder Woman is a ride that not only I would recommend getting on when you visit Great Adventure, but a ride that I would recommend getting on relatively sooner than later.
Yep, I agree. All right, so to wrap up the interview thing before we go over to our question and answer panel with our viewers, is there anything you would like to add on or say to our viewers?
Well, one, I want to say thank you all for watching. You all are amazing for listening to talk about Great Adventure and whatnot. And I really think I do want to say that I love Great Adventure, and I really think that Great Adventure deserves more credit. I think it's a really fun place, and I think it's a really fun park, and I'm very thankful to have it as my home park and to share so many experiences and just have it, be a place I can go if I want to have fun, or for a weekend, or take my friends out and go and hang out and have fun. And yeah, I think Great Adventure is awesome. And
all right, I agree. So viewers, we're going to enter the question and answer panel now. if you wish to stick around for this, you can. If you have to go somewhere, you don't have to. I'll answer the questions. But if you would like to stick around for this, you very well are entitled to do so. So some of the questions that I got while we were talking, somebody had asked, when is Jersey Devil going to test? So here's what I've garnered so far. A couple weeks ago, we went to Power Hours, and the Rocky Mountain construction crew was there on site, and we actually had a conversation with some of the schedulers for their construction timeline, and as far as I know, they want to have the Congo line, aka the moving station, with all 4 trains fully operational by the end of May. The other night when I went to Power Hours on Thursday, I went back there over by Jersey Devil, and I noticed that all the sensor lights were on for the brakes and the transfer track, and the maintenance lights for the lift hill were installed, the lights for the station were installed, which leads me to believe that the electrical work has been wrapped up and is fully operational. I think we could definitely see Jersey Devil testing this week. I was fully anticipating for them to run a test run either today or last Friday, but I don't think they did. I haven't heard anything different unless you might have.
Yeah, no, I haven't really heard too much. I know that they're nearing their completion on electrical, and it definitely seems that way. I actually had a friend go to the park yesterday, and they were saying the same thing you were, with lights being on and the area lights being on and so much and so forth. So I think we're definitely nearing testing soon. The very first testings, I think we're nearing that soon. And I really do think we could see some by the end of this week. On their update on Friday, many people noticed, including myself, that there was a test dummy. There were test dummies in one of the trains in the maintenance shed, which is usually a very good sign for testing.
Yes.
So I think there's a very good chance that we could see testing sometime this week, and hopefully we do, because I know me, you, and many others are very excited to see the very first testing of that ride.
Oh yeah, of course. It's gonna be crazy seeing that testing, and it's just the thought of having an RMC at our home park is just mind-boggling at this point.
Yeah.
All right, next question that I just got here, from Dre. Dre asks, "Do you think that the park added Wonder Woman and JDC in Nitro's area in order to boost its ridership?" Are you referring to Nitro's ridership? Because if you're referring to Nitro's ridership, I absolutely do not think they would add it there to boost Nitro's ridership. I think if there was a ride in the park that was struggling from ridership issues, and if they were looking to add those rides particularly to boost ridership, I think they would have probably found space for these rides back by Bizarro. Because Bizarro is in a very secluded part of the park, and there's not a whole lot going on around it, and it's pretty much a hassle of a walk to get to where it is, because you go through pretty much everything in the main park, and then you reach Bizarro, which is like its own little section there, and it's very secluded behind the woods. So, in the future, I feel like what they should do is they should add rides over there by Bizarro to enhance its life, because it's definitely one of the lesser populated rides when you go on a busy day. As far as where they placed Jersey Devil and Wonder Woman, I will say this, right? In Wonder Woman's case, they took over the old country section of the park and they turned it into like a DC themed area, and I think the intention behind that was to introduce like these new prototype rides to the park that they had never had before, like Cyborg, for example. As far as I know, I don't recall the park ever having like a dark ride experience like Justice League either, and Wonder Woman is obviously the tallest Giga Discovery in the world right now, so I think that's just like a section that they saw that they could place these rides and really like able to market them as their own like thing. Jersey Devil, I think the placement for Jersey Devil is actually due to the terrain. I think that spot that they're building it on is perfect because it's right next to the lake and it has the perfect Pine Barren setting for the theme of the ride. So I definitely think that that's why they would place Jersey Devil there. Do you have any other thoughts or opinions you'd like to add on?
Yeah. I do want to say I feel that Nitro has been very strong with ridership throughout the years. While it might not always have generated the longest line in the park, the crews at Nitro are very fast and efficient, which
Mm-hmm.
is what caused it to have some of the highest ridership of any seasonal park in the chain. In
Mm-hmm.
2019, it reached 1.9 million riders, just short of their 2 million goal, which is still amazing in itself. 1.9 million riders in a single season,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fantastic. And shout out to those crews. But no, I think Nitro has always stood strong in terms of its popularity. It's been a popular ride for 20 years now. This is the 20th year of operation, and I think that the locations of Wonder Woman and Jersey Devil were just in correlation with their areas and not to increase ridership for Nitro in general. For instance, like you said, the location of Jersey Devil is perfect because it gives a very much Pine Barren feel and scene. And again, with Wonder Woman, they were expanding the area of Metropolis, and it just made sense for Wonder Woman to be there. Shine bright. It took over Stuntman Freefall's plot of land, and I just think I wouldn't say that those rides were added to boost Nitro's ridership. And one more thing that I do want to add is that, from what I understand, as much as Bizarro does not have some of the longest lines, I do hear that it does really well in terms of ridership. It sometimes, from what I've heard, it ranks as one of the highest ridden rides for a season at the park.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where specifically, but yeah, I have heard that Bizarre actually has pretty decent ridership, which is, obviously if you don't see a line, you're like, oh well, what the heck. But I also want to say that 2021, I have a few photos of the line, and it's just filled with switchbacks.
Oh yeah, yeah,
so so yeah, this season at least, it's been very very popular. But
yeah.
yeah, for the original question, I don't think Wonder Woman and Gypsy Devil were added to boost Nitro's ridership, as Nitro already stands on its own and already has its mark as one of the most ridden coasters in Six Flags and has just very high ridership in general.
Yep, I agree. And one thing else that I wanted to add for Wonder Woman's argument, in that area of Metropolis, you already had existing rides like Batman the Ride, which and Dark Knight that are over in that area too, which fits well with the DC theming that they have going on over there. So I think that general area is also like the main core of like where their DC theming is, aside from Green Lantern and Superman, which are obviously out in front by the parking lot. But I definitely think that's another reason why they would place like Cyborg and Wonder Woman and Justice League over in that area, because it was prime real estate to continue on to the DC theme.
Right.
Which ride do you think is the next to go? Ooh, that's a tough question. So I don't know what Insider Adventure has heard, but I've heard rumors that the park is already looking to get rid of Cyborg. The reason being is its maintenance fees are not. There's a deficiency there between what they paid for the ride and the revenue it's generating, and then the cost of maintenance. And as everyone knows, Six Flags introduced the 15 ride removal program earlier, or late last year actually. And the whole purpose of that program was to get rid of rides that were underperforming for what they were generating in revenue. And from what I hear, Cyborg's not doing that great of a job. But Insidegadv Adventure might have more information than me on this subject, because I'm not necessarily like enlightened enough to know what I'm talking about for that specific.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Cyborg's maintenance to revenue differences, but the one thing that I do know, and Great Adventure has confirmed in one of their Behind the Adventure updates, a fan of the park had asked the question saying, what rides will we remove? And Great Adventure has confirmed that for the 2021 season, as of right now, there will be no ride removals for this season. Now, obviously, that does not speak for the future.
I do.
In my opinion, go.
I do remember seeing something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, the ride that I could see next going is Twister. It's kind of funny that I mentioned this because you mentioned Cyborg and I mentioned Twister. But it's actually for the reason that Cyborg exists, and part of the reason why I don't know if they're going to get rid of Cyborg just yet is because they were spending a good amount of 2020 renovating it and doing the renovations, and they did push to get it open at the end of the year. And I think something that would have been pretty good evidence for if it was getting removed is if they kept it closed, and it also was closed at the start of this season. Twister obviously is open right now, but I just think that as being one of the last top spins in the US and saying that other parks are getting rid of their top spins, I would not be surprised if Twister was the next ride to go Great Adventure, as other parks are getting rid of theirs because of parts and so on and so forth.
I agree. I also, if we want to speak in terms of roller coasters, what roller coaster we think is going next? I could.
I hope none of them.
Yeah, I hope none of them go. But if I were to pick one, I think it would be Runaway Mine Train, and the reason. And I'm very well aware that Vekoma makes parts for Arrows coasters. I'm very well aware of that, and Vekoma even has their own mine train model. But that ride opened with the park, and it's very old, as we would think it would be old. But it's still a smoothly running ride for the most part. So I honestly don't think it's gonna get removed either way. But if I were to pick a coaster candidate, I think it would be Runaway Mine Train.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said, Runaway Railway, but we saw how that ended up.
Yeah, it's
But,
sitting in the garage behind Batman.
right. It's really difficult for me to say in particular which one I could see being removed. I would say Runaway Mine Train, but if it's not Runaway Mine Train, I could see Green Lantern potentially going. Or maybe not going in the sense of leaving, but in the sense of being converted.
Aha.
To a different floor list. I think
So-
it would be an interesting thing. But the one thing that I will say
This is perfect because Dre just asked what your opinions on Green Lantern conversion to floors or sit down is. So go ahead. I just wanted to mention that. As soon as you started talking about it, he asked that question. That's pretty cool.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I could see it being converted. I could see it being converted, and I also can't see it being converted. From what I understand in terms of the lines that Green Lantern can generate very long lines.
Oh, of course.
I've seen it run back to the entrance of the ride, switchbacks and whatnot. So it is obviously a very popular ride. But if the park is looking at it in terms of comfortability, I could see the park potentially converting it into a floorless. And I think that I would hope that it would be a sit down. That way there could be a sit down, and Bizarro could still exist because, again, I don't want any coaster to leave Great Adventure.
No, yeah.
Much. And I think that if having it be a sit down in comparison to a floorless would be good enough reason for the park to keep them. And yeah.
Viewer asks, what is the best song in the King Ka soundtrack?
My favorite would have to be Baya Baya.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that song.
I'd have to agree. I think it's Baya Baya by the Safri Duo. It's definitely the best song in King Ka soundtrack. Easily.
Love that. I'm also I understand this might not have been a question asked, but I do want to say I'm very happy that King Ka and Zumanjaro are running together now.
Oh yes, that's a big news. Yes.
Yeah, I've spoken with so many people now that have experienced it, and just hearing their thoughts about how King Ka is shaking as it's going up and riding down next to Zumanjaro, and people who are on Zumanjaro and went down and King Ka was right next to them, and it's amazing. I'm very excited because I hope I can get an experience on it this Sunday, as I think it will be very amazing and scary at the same time, watching King Ka launch down and then dueling as you drop. But yeah, I'm really happy about that. On the topic of King Ka and its music.
All right, we'll wait a couple more minutes. Does anybody else have any more questions for us to answer? We would love to answer more questions.
Yeah, these are some really good questions, especially the one about Jersey Devil and Wonder Woman in comparison to Nisha. That was a really good question.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, I was kind of caught off guard by how good that question was, because that's not something you think about, right? Like why a ride is placed where it is. So that was really cool. That put a new perspective in my head and gave me a little bit more to think about. I like that.
Yeah, but speaking on Jersey Devil really quickly, I am really happy with where they positioned it. I'm really happy that as you're going up the lift and you reach the top of the lift, you're going to see the beautiful Fostertown Lake to your left, and you're going to see all of the roller coasters of Great Adventure to your right. I really like where it's positioned. And again, like you've mentioned, it gives that pine barren feel as you're surrounded by trees. I'm very hopeful that this ride will be amazing during the nighttime because, as a lot of people know, Nitro, in my opinion, is one of the best night rides along with Bizarro. Those two I feel like are some of the best, and that is because of their location in relation to trees. It's very dark and it's very just it's an experience. It's very much an experience. So I'm really happy with the location, and I am really hopeful and looking forward to um, the ride being open and riding it at night and experiencing it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think Jersey Devil's location was really prime for its theme. Especially if anybody's been on Superman, the ride at Six Flags New England, you know what it's like to ride next to a lake and how awesome it is. That aesthetic is. So I definitely think they nailed it on the head there. I think they hit the ball out right out of the park with where they put Jersey Devil.
Absolutely.
So viewer says this isn't a question, but he heard a rumor that Great Adventure is looking into getting Ka lap bars. Here's my opinion. Great Adventure is now able to run Zumanjaro and King Ka at the same time due to the change in New Jersey state laws. However, as far as I know, and maybe Inside Great Adventure knows something different, but as far as I know, the law for the restraints hasn't changed. So as far as I know, I don't think they would be able to get lap bars for it. So I definitely don't see the validity into that rumor. However, if Inside Great Adventure has more information on that, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I do not have more information on that in particular at this time. Obviously, as more things come out and as more things are heard about throughout the park from people that are, reliable sources and whatnot, we'll have more information. But I don't know. I have not heard anything valid or concrete about that. What I will say though is that I personally don't mind King Ka with the lap bar, with the over the shoulders rather.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. I'm not the tallest person. I'm about 5'7", so I understand people that are maybe 6 feet and stuff. I understand that they might, with their shoulders and their collarbones, might have a little bit of a problem with it. But I have never had a problem cause restraints. But I think it would be interesting if they change them. But ultimately, I think King Ka is just fine with the restraints and the way it is right now. But I understand that some people do want them.
Yeah. Another question. We got actually two really great questions here by Dre. Dre asks, I don't know if you already said this, but after Jersey Devil coaster, what coaster do you think will be added next, and by which manufacturer? So we'll cover this question first. I personally think so I'm not gonna say what I think is coming next to the park, but rather what I think the park needs to add next. So El Toro is a great wooden coaster, but it is an adrenaline-induced ride. It's not for everybody, especially younger parties. And I think the addition of like a family-sized Gravity Group wooden coaster to the park would be great. Or even Rocky Mountain Coasters construction. They just introduced a new family iBox hybrid model. So those are two additions that I would like to see go to Great Adventure. But if we're thinking from a more realistic standpoint, I pretty much think that Great Adventure is probably going to get an Axis coaster at some point, and the reason being is that Six Flags has a great relationship with SNS right now, and as everyone knows, they've cloned the free spin models at every park. I think the two main manufacturers that Six Flags is working with right now is Premier and SNS. Because they obviously just built West Coast Racers and Max Force in the most recent future too. But as far as that goes, like I think the Axis coaster is probably, we're either going to get a prototype or a clone of some sort of the Axis coaster, I think. What do you think Inside Great Adventure?
Yeah, I definitely think I actually have this one theory, and it's mainly because of the recent history in the past 5 years with Great Adventure and Six Flags.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we are going to get an Axis coaster next because I believe that Six Flags Fiesta Texas will be the first park in the Six Flags chain to receive an Axis coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Six Flags Fiesta Texas has always been about innovation and being the first of many, or multiple rides. They got the first 40 free spin. And here's where my theory comes into play. Great Adventure got the next 40 for each one after in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster was the first RMC Raptor for the chain, and Great Adventure is the second rendition of that. And I think if this trend keeps going, and I do think there is a good chance that Fiesta Texas gets an Access Coaster, as Fiesta Texas and Six Flags as a whole is all about innovation.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll get their next Access Coaster maybe 2022, 2023,
Mm-hmm.
at least for the company to pick back up, after the pandemic and whatnot.
Right.
And I think Great Adventure will then follow suit again, and get a record-breaking Access Coaster, which I think will be amazing for the park, as I view the Access Coaster right now as an updated suspended coaster.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Cars. And I've always wanted a suspended coaster, something like Vortex at Canada's Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
I went to that park in 2019. It was an amazing ride. I've always wanted something like that at Great Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So for an Access to come and for it to have not only that swinging factor, but the inversion factor, I think that would be amazing. And I think that's definitely next. I do want to add really quickly, though, if it is not an Access Coaster, I would love to see something like West Coast Racers, because I would love a dueling coaster at Great Adventure. Hershey Park, is some of you may or may not know, has a ride called Lightning Racer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a dueling roller coaster, and I find it very fun. And with Great Adventure's history of having dueling coasters, I think it would be amazing for them to get a modern premiere launch, something like West Coast Racers, and I think that would be an amazing family thrill for the park, and also have just a great layout and a very overall enjoyable ride. But again, I do think that an Access Coaster is most likely next year.
I agree. All right, so the next question is, also with the addition of Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, do you think Six Flags and Great Adventure specifically is going to continue with the extensive theming elements of the rides? So here's my theory, right? Jersey Devil was a unique ride specific to Great Adventure, and it won't be for much longer because Magic Mountain's obviously getting a cloned layout with a few differentials to the layout, but honestly I don't think it's going to continue as a trend. I think the reason why Jersey Devil even got its extensive theming and Fiesta Texas Daredevil Dive got its extensive theming is because the chain had pretty much a year off due to the pandemic, and I think it gave them a little bit more time to invest in ideas for theming for their newer attractions. Because as we've seen previously, like some of the theming on like the rides are good, but they're not to the extent of Jersey Devil, in my opinion. Like Wonder Woman, at Great Adventure, like the theming is cool, but like I feel like they could have done more with it, and that was an addition that they had just received right before the pandemic. So I don't know. My opinion is I don't think they will continue with the extensive theming unless the park generates more revenue this year due to the full reopening restrictions being released, or if they take some of the revenue away from another park and invest more into another. And I don't think they do that very often. So I think the likelihood of us getting another extensively themed ride is pretty low. Do you have any other opinions?
I actually kind of think the opposite. Mainly because overall, like at least for the parks, at least for Six Flags larger parks, we saw West Coast Racers with that entire new area, and as much as people might not like the theme of West Coast Racers, I think that the theming there was extensive as it got the entire new area, the underground. They were able to partner with a cart company, and that ride had relatively good theming considering it gave the ride an entire new area.
That's true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Daredevil Dive at Fiesta Texas has extensive theming, but I find that park always does extensive theming. That crew there is just amazing. They really like to theme their rides. Even with Joker's Funhouse, they got an entire funhouse for their queue line, and it was really extensive. And here we are with Jersey Devil. We're getting the Pine Barrens area, we're getting signage, we're getting billboards, we're getting trees of shrubbery, we're getting, so many things that are just adding, even down to the design of the queue house. Really just that attention to detail. And I think with these recent additions, I think Six Flags is potentially moving in a direction of theming. it. I mean, one thing I will say is that I would never compare like it to Universal because Universal is its own category, and I know
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people like to do that, but I think that's a little unfair because Universal is Universal, and I just think they're in two separate categories. But I do think that we will see the continuation of um, this theming and so what and so forth. And regarding Daredevil Davish Texas specifically, I would love to see something like that go in the Pine Barrens area next to
Mm-hmm.
Jersey Devil. On the blueprints, there was an area that said area for future development, and I could totally see something like Daredevil Dive going in there to add to the area
Mm-hmm.
of Jersey Devil to have Jersey Devil and that potential air race. But yeah, I think we'll definitely see more theming from Six Flags in the future with their major coasters and thrill rides and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I really appreciate your opinion on that because you just gave me a new perspective on it. I agree with you there. I think they could definitely be moving into that direction now. Now that I think about it, because I definitely put West Coast Racers in the back of my mind, as many people do due to the lengthy construction period it had. But I definitely did overlook the fact that they did a lot of extensive theming for that ride. So you're right. I think they definitely could be starting to move into that direction, and I think it has a lot to do with the new the chain CEO. It's Mike Spanos, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Mike Spanos has a lot to do with this as well. I've seen certain posts saying that Mike Spanos wants to turn Six Flags flagship parks into like destination attractions for tourists and whatnot, which could possibly include the potential for more unique rides at these parks, more extensive theming, hotels even. So I think that's definitely a possibility now that I think about it a little more clearly. We're gonna do a couple more questions and we're gonna wrap it up. Because we're heading into like the hour and a half territory for this. So,
Yep.
the next question was, what's the best area soundtrack at Great Adventure? I don't really pay attention to the soundtracks that much. So I'm probably not the best person to ask this question.
I would say my favorite again is okay. It's a tie between Golden Kingdom's area music, and I also do really like um El Toro, Plaza del Carnival's music.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bamboleo, and again, I like Baya Baya, and those are two of the multiple songs that play constantly throughout those areas. And that's another thing that I really do enjoy. I do enjoy the themed music in relation to the area.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's amazing. And even in Frontier Adventure, sometimes they'll play Last Name by Carrie Underwood. And it's just like, it helps you feel in the area more. And I really do enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say it's probably a tie between Golden Kingdom and Plaza del Carnival.
All right. Any more questions before we wrap up? Anybody got any more questions? We'll give them a couple minutes here to ask questions.
And the one thing I want to say, since obviously we're getting close to ending, is that I am very happy that I was able to do this. This was very fun, and I also want to just give a huge shout out to Great Adventure and all their staff and all the people that work there. As so many of them are so nice. I mean, I've had so many amazing conversations with multiple people that work there, and I've made friends and people that are just really helpful and supportive and just absolutely amazing. So I just want to add that in there, and yeah.
I agree 100%. A couple of staff members that I want to shout out is Kristen Siebeniker. She is the head of communications for the park. I think she does a fantastic job. She's the one that runs like the behind the scenes narrations, and for the previous media days in the past, she's always been the one that's managing the media days, and I honestly think she does a fantastic job at that park. She's always working very hard. So Kristen Siebeniker Fitzgerald, yeah, she's great. I really appreciate all the hard work she puts into Great Adventure.
Absolutely. She's absolutely kind and so sweethearted and just very supportive and a really awesome person. And yeah.
All right, last question. Would Six Flags ever get a B&M again? All right, so this is a controversial subject because this has a lot to do with Six Flags' history, and the reason they only added Green Lanterns since after 20 10 is because back in 2008 when we had the stock market crash and the mini depression in our economy, Six Flags kind of like stopped going big on their investments because they ended up going bankrupt, and having to file for bankruptcy really gave them this like more held back mentality for adding rides. So like B&M's coasters are very expensive and more than likely out of Six Flags' price range. However, if we see a increase in the wealth of the economy over the years, and with Mike Spanos taking over the company, his business ideas and perspectives are different than the previous CEO of Six Flags. So I think there's a possibility that we could see another B&M in the future, depending on. Oh yes, X-Flight was added in 2014. I'm sorry, that's my bad. X-Flight was added in 2014.
I think it was. I think they added X-Flight. I want to say it was the year after Green Lantern. I want to say it was 2012. I think
it was somewhere around 2012 to 2014 range. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I did not think about that. But anyways, going back to the topic at hand, yeah. So if I were to see a B&M go anywhere, and let me tell you something, anybody who's watching this will agree with me probably. Six Flags St. Louis needs a B&M so bad, and I think the perfect fit of a B&M to go there would be an inverted coaster. And B&M actually overseas in Sweden at Gröna Lund just did Monster, which I think is a beautiful looking invert coaster, and they fit it into the tightest spots they possibly could in that park. That park was landlocked, and they still put a B&M invert in there, and I think that's honestly incredible. And it's not a large scale invert, so I think it's on the lower price tag side. I definitely think St. Louis should definitely get an invert at some point. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously depending on how Six Flags Corporation does as a whole, I think it would. I would hope. I've always this is always my little dream of Great Adventure. Is for them to get a Giga at some point. That's always been my like little dream. I've always been like, oh my god, if Great Adventure ever got a Giga, like I would be so happy. But I do think that in the coming years, depending on how Six Flags is proving to be, and from what I understand now, Six Flags is.
Hold on, I made a mistake. I didn't even realize they had a Batman clone at Six Flags St. Louis. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. So, all right, I changed my mind. If they were to get a B&M, I'd still think they need a B&M there, another B&M. But if they were to get a B&M, I would go with either a wing coaster or even a Giga. Yeah, I'd have to say, I think a Giga would be cool too.
Yeah, but Six Flags is definitely proving to be coming out of the pandemic strong, at least from the quarterly calls, which is very good. And I think if they continue to see the growth that they want, I could see them expanding out to past companies like B&M to make things like B&M wings or dives, which would in turn be huge record breakers, and in turn again generate millions of dollars for these parks and be coming full circle. But yeah, like I said, my dream of Great Adventure has always been a B&M Giga. I've always thought it would be interesting to see back by Bazaar or even something in the front of the park if they were ever able to fit it in.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that would be. But yeah, I could absolutely, short answer, yes, I would love to see Six Flags work with B&M again, and I think it is possible in the next coming year.
All right. Last point, because somebody is in the chat asking for a Jersey Devil construction update. So I'm not gonna view it on the podcast simply because I don't know what copyright policies and whatnot are like for videos. I know they allow us to share it on our social media pages, like the pictures on our stories and stuff. I don't know how they do it with videos, so I'm not gonna take that risk and show it on the podcast. However, if you do want to see the most recent Jersey Devil construction update, You can view it on Six Flags Great Adventures Twitter, or if you have Instagram, I highly recommend following our guest here, Inside Great Adventure, as they are always one of the first people to have Jersey Devil construction updates up on their page. And Inside Great Adventure actually makes their own posts for the Jersey Devil construction updates, so you can even get like their perspective on the construction update and whatnot. I definitely think you should check out Inside Great Adventures page if you want to see the most recent Jersey Devil construction update.
Yeah, a lot of, and I do want to clarify, a lot of all the photos that I use of those updates are from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So because I know I've had multiple people reach out to me and say that they can't always see the updates on Twitter, which is part of the reason why I haven't been posting them. But yeah, absolutely what Austin said. Check out SFGR Adventure on Twitter, as they will always post it. But if you don't have Twitter, I do post the updates, and for anyone that can't see it on Twitter, and just to share it and, to get a conversation and stuff like that. The most recent one that I have is from the 14th, and I do believe that Great Adventure will be posting another one on the 21st, maybe sooner if we see testing. But yeah, they're usually every Fridays. But yeah.
All right, and I think we're going to wrap up the podcast with that. So once again, I want to give a very special thank you to Inside Great Adventure for taking the time out of their day to join me on the very first episode of Coaster Conventional. To our viewers, whoever is still watching the podcast, I really appreciate you guys for being here and sticking around for the entire podcast. It's really cool that we had people and joining us and getting involved, and this is something that I want to continue to do every week. My current schedule for the podcast is to do it every Monday and Wednesday around the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so or daylight time, whatever you guys are more familiar with. But I definitely appreciate having you on the podcast. It's really cool to have you on here. I'm really happy that we got to talk about your page and your content. Especially because, like I said before, I definitely think you're one of the best Great Adventure content creators, and I think your dedication and hard work is really, really proven in your content. So I'd like to give you another thank you for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate you having you as a guest for the first episode.
And I want to say thank you too for allowing me to be the first guest on your podcast, as I love talking about Great Adventure, and I'm so happy that the chat was just so interactive, asking questions, and I'm happy that we were able to talk about so many different things about Great Adventure and just being a really positive, uplifting, and amazing conversation. And I'm really grateful. And again, thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining us on the first episode of Coaster Conventional, and I will see you guys on Wednesday, and I will be announcing the next guest on Wednesday morning, so stay tuned for that. If you don't already, follow our social media pages. I have Inside Great Adventures posted in the description. You can find mine on Instagram at Derailed Coasters. So yeah, if you guys want to stay tuned for that, definitely check out my page. If you guys want to see more in-depth and detailed Great Adventure content, definitely follow Inside Great Adventure. And have a good night, guys. Appreciate it.